This deck has so many instants, so many spells. It has removal, it has tempo plays, it has card draw. Adriano's deck really feels like it has so many of the pieces you want in a blue-red deck in this format. Maybe missing some cheap removal. Would love a Torch the Tower or two, but overall, this deck is nice.
So, Monty, I've got to ask you, we've been talking about the importance of draft all day long here today. Why is it so good to start undefeated, other than the obvious?
Well, the first thing is you only need one win to come back for day 2. And that's really the first step, is come back for day 2. Every other discussion, whether it's, all right, now let's get to 5 wins or 6 wins, it's all come back for day 2 and give yourself a shot at going deep in the tournament. So 3-0 in draft, you only need one win to come back for day 2. The rest of it, pretty self-explanatory. And if you can start off with a good draft, maybe you can do it again tomorrow as well.
All right, well, for the pod, here we go. Marshall and Paul are in the booth. Take it away, boys.
Yeah, thank you, Maria, and everybody at the news desk. Marshall Sutcliffe here with Paul Cheon, and as they just laid out for you, a pretty sweet matchup coming in. One of them in Chris's hands looks like a good version of a deck against a pod of really tough players.
Yeah. It's got kind of that black-green food shell with some really, really powerful splashes. Solid late game. This is the kind of draft deck that you want to draft when you're in the Golgari food color combination. However, you're not going to have the perfect deck.
No,
and that's just never.
That's what I meant, right? It doesn't look like a great version. Right. It's like this is kind of what you expect.
And that's always the case at the Pro Tour level, at the World Championship level. The quality of players are much higher. You're not going to get that Candy Grapple 5th pick and be like, what's happening? That just doesn't happen in this format. So I think all things considered, given the pod, Ferber has a fantastic deck. Now, on the other side, Moscato also has an incredible deck.
This is really interesting to me, Paul, because the blue-red deck has a very specific theme. It is cast instants and sorceries. That is supported by the fact that there are many adventure creatures, not only in the format, but particularly in the deck of Moscato. I did a quick count, and I believe he has 16 total instants and sorceries available to him between his adventure creatures and actual instants and sorceries. That's absurd.
Yeah, I mean...
That's almost every spell.
Almost every spell. So there's... Adriano Moscato has one of my favorite cards. Maybe not be necessarily the best, but Johan, right? With all those adventure cards, you can cast those adventures if it's on top of your library. So it can generate a ton of card advantage. And also, we saw the 2 copies of the Scalding Vipers. Moscato has a kind of a faster version. It can actually end games pretty quickly with double Scalding Viper, triple Catapult, triple Otter, triple Frolicking Familiar. You're just going to ping your opponent down really quick.
That's right, and we're going to get a chance to see if this blue-red deck has what it takes, because the truth is that it's ended up somewhere in the middle of the pack as far as how effective it actually is, but this is a really good version of it in the hands of Moscato, and he's going to try to knock off Chris Ferber, who's been a rock star in Limited for this season. He was 10-2 coming in. Now he's 2-0 and looking to win the first pod here if he can pick up this match against Moscato.
And he has been putting on a clinic with this deck. We saw all kinds of fun stuff he was able to pull off by animating that Restless Vinestock on in game 1, or excuse me, in round 1. And yeah, I mean, he just seems to be pretty unstoppable in Limited.
Quick study here is going to kick it off for Moscato. That's looks like his first play of the game. Ferber, on the other hand, powering out the Beanstalk Worm, just looking to get some power out there to start slamming on the life total. That is how you beat this deck, and it's going to get returned to hand here.
4 mana to bounce the 5/4 and put a permanent into play.
That's
very
right.
Strong. And now the Scalding Viper just stays in play. Just a really annoying permanent, right? All of a sudden, all just the cheap spells you cost, it just adds up over time. Just gives you a lot of value if you're in this blue-red combination.
Ferber decides that the best play is going to be the same one he made last turn. He just redeploys the worm. And it's going to get stunned down for 3 turns here. This is also going to be Scry 2 from Moscato.
Yeah, and typically the blue-red decks tend to be more on the controlling side, but when you see a card like this, it's telling me that Adriano Moscato is actually looking to be a little more aggressive with this blue-red deck.
Yeah, he'll see if he can turn this into a removal spell, you know, with the Vipers and the Unruly Catapults. Thank you, Adriano, for the assist there. You know, he's got 3 of those, and 3 of the Catapults and 2 of the Vipers. Lot of incidental damage coming over to Ferber, where, you know, you can just kind of grind your opponent down a couple of hits with the 2-1, and all of a sudden you can be dead.
Yeah, but Ferber has the perfect answer. Storm-killed Vanguard is in his hand. Guess what? Unruly Catapult is an artifact, so that is the perfect target here for Chris if he wants to prevent that Catapult from kind of getting out of hand here.
You can see the Vanguard has a sorcery speed naturalized in the form of Bear Down.
God, it feels so bad anytime your opponent just gets a relevant permanent.
That's right. Now that does trigger the 1 damage ping from the Scalding Viper. And the Vanguard will go on an adventure, but we'll probably see it again. And a good turn here for Ferber. Boy, he spent 5 mana the last 3 turns in a row.
Right.
Admittedly, 10 of it was on just that worm, but still.
Yeah, and if you think about this, what this Viper has done so far, it's dealt 4 damage and basically spent 1 of Chris's turns.
Time Walk plus 4 damage.
Not bad.
Got a 2/1 left over as well. Lots of card draw and manipulation from Adriano Moscato as well. You see he scries here. He's also scried 2 earlier and drawn 2 extra cards off a quick study. And this is the big hitter here, Paul. Check this out. Johan, Apprentice Sorcerer. This is a card you highlighted as we came in.
Right, and I mean, Chris needs to try to find a way to fight through this. Doesn't have the answer currently. Has a stab wound, which kind of slows things down, but that's not going to stop Adriano from getting a ton of value here off the Johan.
He gets to cast an instant or sorcery off the top of his library once per turn. He can look anytime he wants.
Right. Yeah, so if there's an instant on top, you could even wait until your upkeep. Now remember, this ability only triggers once on each turn, but you can do something on your turn. If you have another spell, do it on your opponent's turn.
Yeah, you can manage the instants and even get a little extra value.
Oh, he's doing it again.
What is he going to wake up the
That's right.
the creature land there again? The Restless Vinestock. This play is awesome, and it's the second time he's done it on camera just for us.
Right.
Can we get it down on that?
Basically what happens is it wakes up the Vinestock and turns it into a 3/3. So, but it still has this static ability. It just says whenever it attacks, another target creature gets base power toughness 3/3.
Yep.
That just happens whether you paid that 3 blue green or not.
Yeah, and Moscato knows that Ferber has stab wounds in deck, not choosing to block here with the Johan. It's like, why would you attack here, right? You have to have something.
He wants to try to get some value going.
Oh, and look, that's a 4/2 here from Ferber. Moscato has double Frolicking Familiar to get it off the battlefield.
You see the Frolicking Familiar, the blow off steam, just a single red to do a damage to anything.
Oh, getting some value here.
But look
Treasure
at this Grabby Giant's going to make a treasure.
off the top.
Now he can't cast this one off the top, but he can look
Right.
anytime he wants.
And that Beanstalk Worm still has a stun counter on it. So not
It has been down for the count for a while.
Yeah, it's been sleeping for a while.
But it is not a removal spell. That thing will untap eventually and start smashing. It has bought Adriano tons of time, though. So that's a thing. Okay.
All right.
Johan feeling frisky. Every bit of damage matters when you're trying to do the
definitely.
catapult thing.
Okay.
And
Just
Grabby
going to
G's going to
4/3.
hit the battlefield.
Still has access to double blow off steam if necessary.
Chris draws his card for the turn. Finally removes that last stun counter from the Beanstalk Worm. So next turn, it will untap.
Agatha.
Interestingly, his mana situation's been the same the whole time, Paul.
Yeah.
He's had these 4 lands plus the Root Rider Fawn. I mean, remember the first time he cast Beanstalk Worm? I mean, that was exactly his same land situation outside of the
Right. Yeah, you're
Vinestock.
correct.
That's the only difference.
Is it stab wound time?
It is.
Right. And that should be
gonna
a
go on
trigger from the
Johan.
Viper, although Don't know that he might have missed it.
May have missed that trigger. Oh, that's brutal.
That is
Spell stutter,
dirty.
sitting on top. Oh,
Have we missed that since he's cast a spell?
yeah, that's a good question.
So, trigger for that.
Yes, that would resolve.
Yeah, that seems a
Me
little
casting a
late,
bunny
but
corn after
we'll let
the
the
counter
judge
hit.
sort it.
This can be cast in response to that trigger.
But there was no acknowledgement of the trigger until after.
That trigger, since it doesn't have any targets, doesn't need to be acknowledged until the time it would resolve, and this
Okay.
could have been cast in response to that trigger. So that trigger has not been missed.
Okay, so
Okay, so that
Okay.
the ping
The
actually
trigger
is on the
happens.
stack then. And so Adriano said, okay, well, I like it to resolve now, which it does.
Okay.
And then the spell stutter resolves and is going to nab the Regal Bunnicorn.
Yeah, that is
So it's kind of all
huge.
upside here for Moscato.
Yeah. Although, wouldn't the stab wound have to have resolved, and then after it resolves, you're casting a bunnycorn afterwards, right? Like, is there a point where there's...
Well, so I think he missed it for the stab wound, but got it for the Bunnicorn.
Got it.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay, yeah, sorry.
17 out of 12?
He almost missed it for both.
Okay, yes.
And Ferber says, I'm not going to miss my trigger
Chris Ferber
on your
does,
upkeep.
does not miss his triggers. So that's 2 cards so far, by the way, off Johan.
Oh, man. Spell stutter just sitting there.
Oh,
It's so
God, it feels
mean.
so good. Beanstalk Worm does get turned on, so Chris...
Finally. That thing's been bounced and then put to sleep, and it just hasn't been able to do anything.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're on Chris's side, you're just thinking, okay, I need to find a way to close this game out because that Johan that's sitting in play, getting Adriano so far ahead on cards.
Speaking
Oh
of,
my
here we go
goodness.
again. That is a that's another Scalding Viper.
Scalding Viper number 2.
So it's going to bounce. What did it bounce?
Oh, man.
Not the worm.
The Outrider.
Okay.
Oh, man. This is just the dream here.
Moscato is putting on a clinic. Can he get him over the finish line, though? These decks are also... There's Johann's stopgap. Oh, he's going to...
Oh, it's non-land. Non-land.
Oh, it's an illegal target.
Yeah.
Ferber kind of smiles. And Moscato says, I can check the top of my library at any time.
Right.
It does so.
I'm going to do that again.
Oh, and we're going to smash here as well. Oh, and there's a reason why
1 mana.
he can reduce the cost on this all the way down to 1. Witchstalker Frenzy does 5
Yeah.
to take down the Vine Stock.
Such a powerful removal
Wow,
spell.
and he even still plays another Scalding Viper. He's got 2 of those on the battlefield right now. And it really feels like kind of a boa constrictor around Ferber. His life to, oh, I'm going to check top of my library, has gone down further and further and further. And now he's in the danger zone even if he doesn't get attacked again.
Yeah.
Like,
Definitely.
just the Vipers could finish him off
Right.
from this point.
I mean, Chris has the Agatha's champion in hand, but nothing to bargain. Right? So you just play that, and that's just
so
a 4/4.
tough. Isn't it brutal when you're like, I am willing to sacrifice an actual creature? And
Right.
like, no.
Nope. Sorry. Oh, I suppose you can sacrifice the stab wound. That is the
True.
only thing that you can sacrifice if you wanted to get a Viper off the battlefield.
Yeah, so
Right?
but then you just give him a 2-powered creature.
Right. That blocks your
Because
4/4.
the good thing about the Viper is you do get to determine when it triggers.
Yeah.
But he's just getting a little bit overwhelmed here. I mean, a couple of tempo plays and he'd be dead.
Right, so like your options are playing a naked Agatha's champion or play the 2 spells in your hand and take 4 from the Vipers.
So instead he's just going to go with the Vanguard
Okay.
here and pass the turn. I mean, he's got a huge amount of power and toughness out.
But he saw the stopgap in Moscato's hand, so
He
this is
did.
not going to be ideal here either.
No, not
He's like, I'm just going to cast this.
ideal might be. Yeah. Because Moscato did just show him Johann's stopgap kind of on accident.
So attack with everything, trade with the 4/3, go down to 2. Now Ferber is unable to
And
play
he gets
anything.
double pinged.
Oh, man.
Oh, that is so brutal. Adriano Moscato is going to blow off steam a couple of times.
You can do it 3 times even, potentially. Oh, no, twice, excuse me.
And that's going to be GG. Okay, so game number 1 goes to Adriano Moscato, who has, I got to say that that's the best version of the blue-red deck I've ever seen in this format.
Good to go.
Yeah.
He's on 6 here.
Yeah, the way that you have a successful blue-red deck is really largely off the uncommons that you have. So Frolicking Familiar and Johann are some of the key cards that you're looking for. Picklock Prankster as well is a card that you will often see late just because people tend to not like to draft blue.
Yeah, it turns out the uncommons are the good cards in that archetype.
Well, yeah.
The commons fill the description of being instants and sorceries, but they are not as good at the payoffs. Even the Catapult hasn't proven to be that great, but it looks pretty good in this deck. By the way, Ferber ahead on a land drop here thanks to Beanstalk Worm. He actually adventured it.
Okay.
He's going to play the Outrider.
Yep.
Get in for a nice chunk of 4. What is Moscato doing? He hasn't played anything.
Yeah, he has the classic Quick Study plus Ice Out combo in hand. Looks like a Moscato boarded in the Ice Out. Makes a lot of sense against the slower mid-range deck that Chris
works
has.
Very well here, especially using, okay, there's Edgewall Pack now for Moscato, using the fact that Adventure telegraphs your play. Right? It's like, hey, I very well may just use my 5-man on this Beanstalk Worm, and Moscato says go, and if you don't, I'll just draw a couple cards.
Now, Edgewall Pack, excellent creature.
Really
even better in the aggressive archetypes, but just a fine card to have in most decks. Just 4 power and 4 toughness worth of stats for 4 is great, but also just having that extra permanent in play to help you bargain.
And
also
3
fantastic.
of it being Menace doesn't hurt.
Right, yes.
Okay, this is going to be sleight of hand now for Moscato, but interestingly, sleight of hand into nothing, right? He's not getting paid off for this with catapults or anything like that.
Right. Just helping smooth out the draws. Moscato does have the Witchtalker Frenzy here for any giant creatures that Ferber might be interested in playing.
Yeah, the Sky Beast tracker is going to chip in for 2, but it looks like Moscato doesn't want to use it.
Oh, this is brutal.
The 1 toughness is like
that's
really
so
tough.
brutal. Monstrosity is a great card, but Frolicking Familiar with 3, it might even be a consideration to board out some of your 1 toughness creatures against a triple Frolicking Familiar.
I would, yeah. I mean, I don't, Flick a Coin is a thing that Moscato actually has a copy of in his deck, but not in, he's not playing it.
Right.
I'm a little surprised, honestly, to see that. But at probably because of that, because he's got so many ping abilities, he doesn't need it. But
is Moscato choosing not to play the Familiar? Interesting.
So he's going to sit back on maybe Pest Problem?
Okay. Not really going to be able to get in, though.
No.
With the Pest.
The Sky Beast tracker's a 2/4.
But the tracker does have reach, I suppose. But it's not hard to find a situation where you can make the Familiar big enough. If you draw another Familiar, right, you just ping the 2/4 and all of a sudden it dies.
Right. Moscato does look like he's got Witchstalker Frenzy, so if he really wanted to clear the skies, he could use it on the tracker. Not a high value target, but what you got to do.
Oh.
Here's a high value target.
And you don't have the mana to cast Witchstalker Frenzy.
Yeah, that's tough. Agatha's Champion's going to come down and just punch the Catapult. Those Catapults actually have a very difficult time staying on the battlefield. Combat tricks and finisher spells like Pingers and Flick a Coin and stuff really do a good job.
Yeah, at the start of the format, I thought it would be great.
Me too.
I'm like, oh, I'm going to draft this blue-red deck with 17 spells, and this thing's just going to kill my opponent. The problem is in this format, like you mentioned, there's just a lot of large creatures, but on top of that, there's a lot of decks that try to go wide.
Yes.
And it just doesn't do a good job of blocking a bunch of rats.
Right, that's the problem. You need 1 power. Like you don't need 2 or 3 or whatever, but you need that 1 power in the format.
Ooh.
And Moscato is just popping off here. Slamming with the rats. Playing the Frolicking Familiar. He's got the Ratcatcher trainee on the battlefield as well, and Ferber is once again put in a spot where he needs to play catch-up.
Yeah, on the back foot here. Might need to slow down here with those attacks from the tracker.
Definitely. I mean, theoretically, the tracker holds off the whole board right now.
Yeah, but look, what I found in this form, there's so much good removal.
Yeah.
It's so hard to just lean on this 1 creature and just hope it stays.
Yeah.
That's why I preferred being aggressive and playing to the board, because you can't just play a 5-mana 5/5 and think it's going to stick around.
Ferber's thinking of attacking? quick life total check. This could bring him down to 10.
Moscato is at 12.
Yeah.
Okay, and Ferber does have a food in play.
Monster.
He's going to monster roll it as well off of
Okay.
Ferocious Werewolf.
And then just play the 4-3.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, that is 3 damage instead of 2, down to 9. That's a 3-turn clock. He's got the biggest thing on board.
Now, what happens if Moscato uses that freeze in place on the Werefox?
Well, then he's going to get in for 8.
Yeah, it looks like it.
That's kind of a lot.
That's a 2-turn clock.
That's kind of a lot. There it is.
Oh, that's a prowess.
Tell you, we're in Vegas. It's getting chilly in here. This is Scry 2 as well.
And 2 relevant cards.
They were spells.
Yeah, that was a Frolicking Familiar and in Aguirre's
boy.
Attendance.
Top. Chris
Yeah.
Ferber has to be like, oh.
So that's when you're like, oh no.
But wait, there's more. Johan Stopgap?
Yeah. Just making sure it's not a royal roll.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the.
Wow, what a turn here for Moscato.
9?
So it ends up being 9 thanks to the additional trigger.
Jeez.
Wow, that's a good turn to double spell.
Not bad. Moscato with just such a streamlined blue-red spells deck here.
This is what these cards are supposed to do with the stun counters in this deck, is effectively kill a creature, right?
Right.
Like, theoretically, this game ends before the Werefox ever gets to untap anyway.
Right.
The one interesting thing that I'll note here is that one of the reasons that the blue-red deck is kind of in the middle of the pack rather than just being really good is food, right? You can make up a lot of incidental pings and things from catapults late in the game by kind of collecting some food and being like, okay, I'll gain 9 this turn. And that hasn't been the case for Ferber, even though he is in a heavy food color.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is, again, a slightly different take on the typical blue-red decks that I've drafted, at least, where...
Yeah, this is a good version?
Yeah.
I mean, it's way better than any I've drafted.
That's fair. Where you tend to be on the more controlling side and you try to leverage your card advantage spells, right? To kind of get ahead and run your opponent out of their threats, and then you win with whatever's left over. Adriano Moscato has a far more aggressive version of this deck.
Yeah, he's leaning into it. All right, we're going to see the signature play here from Ferber. He's going to wake up the Restless Vinestock using Brave the Wilds, which gives you kind of half. Like, it's not a 5/5, but it does have the static ability.
Right.
It's a 3/3 haste.
Likely, attacking.
So he must see a way to close out this game
Yeah.
if he can dodge basically anything this turn.
He's going to go double creature here.
Okay. Wicked Visitor
Now
joins the Verdant Outrider.
Now, which one did Moscato keep on top?
He bothed.
Yeah, he kept both. So which one is he drawing
one?
this turn?
I see. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I guess with the stopgap, he has both. Right.
Oh, okay.
With double trick, this is brutal.
Yeah, Ferber can't feel good about how quickly Adriano Moscato went to his attack step.
Right, because if Ferber blocks both rats, Moscato just casts 2 spells and just wins with the familiar.
Yeah,
so.
I don't think he can get away with ratting here. Obviously, he'd prefer to try to keep 2 creatures alive, which would be lethal. But he knows that Moscato's not going to make this attack and just leave himself.
This is such a
dead
tough
to the
spot. I mean, Chris is either going to throw away a 2/2 as a Ratcatcher trainee has first strike, or block 2 rats and then just die to Adriano Moscato's blow off steam. Can you even get, if you just block the 2 biggest creatures, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's just 7 damage, right?
So
you just blow off steam to the face. And then,
yeah,
and so that's just 7 because the Frolicking Familiar gets +2/+2 this turn.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Chris is going to try.
6.
And 6 or 7.
I'm at 6 years.
I hope you have no spells, though.
And Chris Ferber correctly realizes that he is not going to be able to get it done, and that is blow steam. Adriano Moscato picks up the 3-0 to start off in our feature pod. And as we mentioned when we first came in here, Paul, that's huge for implications on the tournament, making it to day 2, and then potentially a run tomorrow for top 8.
Yeah, and we saw that Chris had a very solid green-based strategy, but guess what? When you're the only player in your table drafting this one archetype, well, it turns out it pays off. And Moscato play was really impressive. Just knowing exactly what he needed to do on every single turn, getting in every single point of damage that he can, and that Johan game 1, wow.
Blowout. This is what it really takes. We talk about this a lot when it comes to drafting preparation. You draft, you learn the basic archetypes, you learn kind of how the colors work. Then if you keep drafting, you start to pick up the more niche archetypes where you know how to do it when the stars align for you and the blue-red deck is open and there's a bunch of good uncommons opened at the table that you get to get. Moscato put it all together and you earned the 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, you just start out the draft with some cards and then you see that 6-pick Frolicking Familiar and you're like, you know what? I'm going to take it.
Yep.
If I see more cards, like I don't want to be blue, but if I see more cards like that, then I'm going to move in because I know that I'm going to be the person in that lane. And guess what? If you have all of the pieces, it's still going to, get you that 3-0.
That's right. So we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we've got more Magic, including a pod final between Eli Kassis and Javier Dominguez. Don't go anywhere. Magic the Gathering World Championship. That trophy, by the way, is huge.
Gigantic.
Like, you got to get really good at Magic, and you got to hit the gym just to be able to lift that bad boy up. Welcome back to the booth here. Marshall Selective with Paul Cheon. We are in the midst of the draft rounds. In fact, we're actually near the end of that. We've got pod finals, so the players are broken up into 8-player pods, and then they play a bracket, so 4-2 down to 1 on round number 3, and we're getting to see just one of those. In fact, as we come into this one, we're going to be coming in on game number 2 of Eli Kassis versus Javier Dominguez. These are two seasoned professionals, to say the least, and boy, they will be very, very much wanting to leave the draft with a 3-0 before we transition over to standard after this round here. And this is actually game number 2 coming in, with Eli Kassis having picked up a very quick game 1. And Paul, you and I were just taking a quick look at his deck list, and you can see why.
It is incredible. It's just the ideal Rakdos deck that you want to draft. I mean, it's got removal, it's got a good curve, it's got it's got double Totentans, it's got, I'm just taking a look, and every time I look over, there's just something else more impressive. There's a Godric in here. There's a red-capped Gutter Dweller in here. I mean, he just has everything that you want.
That's incredible. Javier's going to start off with just Conceited Witch on turn 3. Voracious Vermin is going to be Eli Kassis' play. He's just going to pass the turn back. So 2 tame starts here from our players in game number 2. Yeah, these are 2 of the best all-around players in the field.
Absolutely.
And you can see cooped up on the Vermin before it gets out of hand. That will also clear the way. I shouldn't say that. It had a clear attack anyway, but Down for 2 goes the Conceited Witch. Kassis is going to be at 18. Can he start finding some of his bombs? He has them.
Yep.
They're around.
Javier also has one of the best rares in the set, by the way.
What does he have?
Virtue of Persistence.
Wow. That's a very difficult card to beat. Yeah, speaking of Conceited Witch.
Oh, putting the proper roll instead of a +1/+1.
I like it,
counter
Javier.
there. Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
make the judges happy, make us in the booth happy. Conceited Witch is going to hit the battlefield as well. So Wicked Roll into Conceited Witch go. Good curve outs here for Eli Kassis. And Javier's using his mana pretty well too. So let's see how he does this turn. Now he's got 5 mana available, 4 cards in hand.
You know, yeah, Javier with also a solid deck, 2 copies of Neva. Ooh, and the Witch's Vanity here, finding a nice target. When it was just a rat, maybe not so good, but now that it's got the roll on it.
And that does mean that the Conceited Witch gets to chip in for another 2. And you can see Kassis just taking a quick look there. There's Scarecrow Guide now for Javier. Not the most powerful follow-up play, but he did double spell that turn, and that can be a way to get ahead, no doubt about it. Another 2 damage. These 2 witches are just kind of flying past each other.
Both these players were
There's
just
Rat out to kill the Scarecrow, which is why it's not very good.
ton of World Championship experience between these two, right? Eli Kassis, the runner-up of last year's World Championship. Javier, of course, the World Champion, the fervent champion.
Yeah, he was a runner-up one day.
He went from runner-up to champion in the following year. Pretty good run there.
Maybe Eli will do the same. I mean, he only improved by 1 spot year over year.
That's not a
It
huge
wasn't
improvement,
that good.
is it?
No.
Yeah.
Well, Javier says, I'm going to use my mana this turn, so I'm going to play Neva, but I'm just getting back that Scarecrow.
Hey, it's going to get bigger next turn. That Witch's Vanity is going to Chapter 3, and it does get +1/+1 whenever an enchantment hits the graveyard.
Yeah, both creatures have Menace here for Javier, so the damage can keep flowing.
Eli with the Rowan's Grim Search.
Grim Search reload, I guess.
Look for some bombs. Eli has plenty of them.
Yeah.
Another card that I thought would be decent, but now I find myself not playing it as often.
Agree.
Due to the speed of the format.
Hostile.
Yeah.
It is unkind.
Think could have maybe gotten a counter on the Vermin, but I don't think it matters. I don't know if Black-Red has a way to remove an enchantment.
Okay, there's Totem Taunts number 1. The Swarm Piper himself. Oh, wait, there's more?
There's more.
Another Witch. Boy, these players are really good about using up their mana every turn.
Yeah, choosing not to pump up a creature to get a little extra value, but just playing to the board. So we get a Wicked Roll token here from the Witch's Vanity.
And it looks like Javier's deciding where it wants to go.
Right.
And it's going to be on the Conceited Witch.
And the trigger here as well from Neva.
He's reading it himself. He's like, this is great.
Ooh, look at all the value.
Spry 1 on this, too.
Yeah.
Ooh, top. Gonna keep it.
Pretty close race here. Javier does have the food advantage. Wondering if Eli's going to go for a double block here or just going to take 6. The double block does leave you just vulnerable to anything that Javier might have at instant speed.
It's just so tough when you look over and he's 5 untapped lands, a bunch of cards in hand.
Yeah. Kellen's Light Blades, Archon's Glory. There's just all kinds of cards you could have here.
Because he says, you know what, I got to take care of business, so do your worst.
Does Javier have something?
Javier wants to trade. Okay, so Taunt's going to hit the battlefield. Yeah, Kassis does pick up the counter.
And gets a rat there left over, so not a bad trade.
Especially if he has another Totem Taunts.
Ooh, and Javier's got a Cruel Somnophage in hand. Don't think there's any blue mana there, although there was a Scarecrow Guide.
And he's got that in his hand. It's the one he bought back.
Is that a second Neva?
Yeah, it is.
Are we just chaining him?
Could get really annoying.
But you could get Witch's Vanity. Now, you only kill the rat, but you get another food and another Wicked Roll token.
Yeah, and he could cast it now.
Yeah.
Kind of a, would you want
But chaining, this is just a classic Magic thing. It's called, you just, he's a Gravedigger, chaining Gravediggers, and he's like, look, I can't pass up on that value.
Yeah, and I don't blame him, especially because he has the guide, so he can just recast that and still use all 6 mana this turn.
Right.
This is just a classic limited mid-range fight right now.
Yeah.
Players are getting a little bit of value. We saw Roan's Grim Search getting cards for Kassis. Now, Neva for Javier. Players are at middling life totals. All right, there's Fell Horseman bringing back. See, this is what I'm talking about.
Back.
The grind is on. Totentanz can hit the battlefield once again.
Remember, now has the ability to give the rat Death Touch. So I don't think Javier was too interested in blocking this rat. Can double block a Conceited Witch, however, if he wants to keep his life total high. Remember, Javier does have some recursive elements in hand already, so not too sad if he trades away some creatures here.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty incentivized to start chewing through these Nevas, but of course that would be Ely's choice, as he could just kill the Scarecrow guide instead. And instead he's just going to take the damage. Down to 8 goes Dominguez.
Oh, a glass casket here from Javier. It's a clean way to get that Totentanz off the battlefield.
And against Black-Red, there's not too many ways to get rid of the casket.
Right.
Likely we'll just keep Totentanz cooped up for the rest of the game. There's the casket.
Yeah, that's an attack for 70 here too.
Boy, and Kassis is at 9.
Yeah, I wonder, I'm curious what Javier's considering here with the glass casket. It looks like you probably just want to get the Totentanz. Probably just wondering what reach spells Ely might have, as this is kind of close, right?
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, do I just want to get the Menace creature? Are we going to play a longer game?
Okay.
Okay.
Dominguez perhaps trying to engineer a scenario where he can race.
Now remilling now because of the Cruel Somnophage. We do have the Scarecrow guide.
True.
Okay. Both creatures with Menace, so.
Yeah, that's why he went to his life total so quickly.
So you got nothing. Down to 4. Now, how many creatures are in the graveyard right now? 0?
Which graveyard?
Both?
Yeah, 0. You're right.
Yeah, all right. So want to hit something here. With the Neva, I imagine Javier's going to just target himself. Hit 1.
You got 1.
Got 1.
It's the best I can do for you, Paul. And do you just want to cast?
It's tough because it's, do you want to cast it or do you want to keep the mana up to sacrifice the food and go up to 11 in this kind of close race situation?
Right. This is the scenario where you don't want to just get, oh,
yep,
something bad happens, some haste creature.
And
gonna play a 1/1
on the board.
Yeah, Neva plus the Somnophage isn't super combo-rific, but individually they're decent cards.
Yeah. Now what happens, Javier's at 8, so Ely's not especially close unless, like you mentioned, there's some kind of haste effect or a pump spell.
Very close game.
Does have a Monstrous Rage in deck. So
that changes math real quick.
That could swing things for sure. Yeah, Javier's just got a pair of 1 toughness creatures. And Ely is not going to is not in a really great position to block. You just got a rat and 2 creatures facing off against 2 menace cards.
Yeah, those rats mean that at a glance, it's like, oh, I'm doing all right. Wait a minute. Like, of anything.
Right. getting in there.
Now math is happening.
Yep. And Javier also, of course, has to consider the possibility of Monstrous Rage from Kassis. Less likely with this attack. It's like, am I double blocking Totentans?
He's thinking about it.
Am I just single blocking and trading with a rat? Growing my Somnophage?
Yeah, you saw the double block opportunity there. No, he's just going to take it, go down to 5.
5.
What's the follow-up? That's a big question
Yeah.
here from Kassis.
Need some creatures. Okay, there's a
Oh,
horseman and maybe one more.
Land. Is he going to dump 8 mana on the battlefield here?
That's a good turn. Ooh!
Oh, cut in.
The post-combat cut in.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Okay, getting one of the menace creatures off. Could have put that on one of the attacking creatures.
He could have. He was playing around or maybe tempting Dominguez into something he maybe didn't want to do.
Right. Now, this Somnophage is not... Wait, is this lethal or no?
Well,
no, it's not. It's
without
not.
blocks? Or?
No. Excuse me. So the Conceited Witch is a 3-power creature. And then there's 2. So
if it attacks.
If it attacks. So if Javier finds a removal spell, that should be enough.
Yeah, looks like Ely is, well, he knows one of the cards in hand, right? Is the Neva.
Neva, what can you get back? The Witch's Vanity does have a target. You can kill the rat. Currently. Any other good options there? I see... No, nothing that he can cast this turn. But, I mean, perhaps killing the rat and having something that produces another food might just be enough here.
Just enough material, taking something off the board, giving me a little something. Especially when life totals get this low.
Yeah.
And that rat is well, it's a potentially young hero.
Yeah.
It's definitely not just a 1/1. Wow, this is so close.
It's extremely close. Now,
it's 5 to 4.
I think Javier here is thinking, you know what, I'm okay if you double block here. My Neva will grow into a 3/3. You will lose one of your 2 creatures.
And a life.
Right, and a life. And then now Ely will get a rat with the Totendens in play, but it's like going for the menace creature here, it seems.
Okay.
Okay.
Voracious Vermin continues to grow, though it is cooped up.
Yeah, but you know what else is growing? The Somnophage.
Yes, that was a lot.
Yeah, so the Somnophage is now looking like it's a 4/4. Just the right size to get in front of the Horseman.
It's also lethal. So any number of lethal threats you can produce is
now
good.
now keeping the food instead of casting the Witch's Vanity. It's like, all right. Yeah, no particularly good blocks here. However, Javier can choose to put the 2/1 in front of the rat.
Food up to 8?
Oh, just taking it all, potentially? Wow.
Ely Kassis with 8 lands down there. Spiteful Hex Mage is going to hit the battlefield. It's going to have a curse roll on it.
Yeah, on the cooped up Vermin. Oh, double spell again.
Jeez.
Okay. 5 to 3.
Right.
This is so close.
That cooped up Vermin's doing a little bit of work over there.
Yeah.
Boy, that was, even though those were cheap cards, a 2-drop and a 1-drop for Kassis, it was 6 power he just put out.
It's like, all right, well, this is a lethal attack.
Boy, what a game.
Yeah, super tight.
Really, really close. No room for error.
Now, Javier does have Witch's Vanity, and it has some nice targets in play now, right? You have access to the Spiteful Hexmage or the Minstrosity.
Yeah, killing the monstrosity.
And getting, the Spiteful Hex Mage off the battlefield here. So now that's a 5/5 that can attack. What else is in hand? Is that a Gingerbread Hunter? I think it's a Gingerbread Hunter.
Didn't see.
Which is going to make combat impossible
That
here.
would make it really difficult for Kassis. I mean, he can survive.
Yeah.
So he's going to double block and then just chump with the monstrosity.
Okay, so the monstrosity just dies.
He'll be probably fine with that. Get him a food.
And then perhaps just killing the Totentans as well. So now you can just block the rats. Although, are there any creatures in play for Javier? That's not the 2/1. It's not just doing some math.
Yeah, he's doing some this is how I'm going to block math.
Hey, 1/1 lifelinker. Not the worst, but that 3/3 rat's also going to be very annoying. Javier's at 6, attacks with everything. That would get 4 points of damage through.
Oh my goodness.
At the lowest amount. Now Javier can also go up a life because of the life linker that he has.
I was going to say, don't miss that one, Ely.
Okay.
He can throw. He's just going to chump.
Yeah, and that means Javier's going to take 2 damage total,
and he'll be
gaining 1.
Yep, exactly.
Oh man. And Javier gets a food next turn.
Right, from
Ooh,
Vanity.
Barrow Naughty, that's a flying creature.
Oh, all this flooding out. I mean, maybe not flooding, but the extra lands here from Kassis will come in handy there.
So food, and then Ely does he have 9 mana? 8.
He has 8.
Okay, so 9 would be 4 damage in disguise, but now Javier is at an effective 6 life with the food in play. This is a lethal attack from Somniphage, so if he attacks, Ely simply has to chump block here.
With the Fell Horseman.
Right, it has to be. I'm assuming that there's enough creatures here to do 6 damage. Does that break the spell?
We are in game 2.
Okay, fair enough.
It is break the spell. And it's going to knock the young hero roll off, it looks like.
It's like, all right, you're going to block here, and then that's an attack for lethal on the other side. So what else does Javier have to work with?
Well, he did have Gingerbread Hunter, as you saw. I got a glimpse of it, too, and that was what he's got. Is it enough?
Right. That shrinks.
He can make the, you know, if Kassis goes all in on Barrow Naughty. Does Kassis have him? Food token brings him up to 6.
9 mana. Oh, I think he does, because this is an attack for.
He drew a land.
This is 9. Javier goes to 6, can shrink 2.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So he would go down to -1.
You're right. Is it not quite enough?
I don't think it is.
He looks at it and he says, I feel like I have enough here, but I don't.
Wow, what a game.
And there we go, a handshake on the end there. Ely Kassis picks up his first draft. Now, that's still a good start for Javier Dominguez. He gets a 2-1 out of the draft, but 3-0, that's where you want to be.
Hey, 3-0 is where you want to be, and you talked about it there. Ely Kassis on the revenge tour, losing in the finals of the last World Championship, off to a great start to try to get back into that position.
I would not bet against him. That is a very nice start for Ely Kassis. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, though, we'll have more magic here from the World Championship. Don't go anywhere.